Now we go back with part two of this podcast, the most frequently read scriptural passage in the Book of Mormon, which for me I think is First Nephi chapter 1 verse 1. The question was, does Nephi's opening statement, I Nephi, having been born of goodly parents, reflect an ancient Hebrew literary style in which the author introduces himself as the writer of the specific record? I think yes. This style or Hebraic style of writing is called autobiographical prologue or the first person prophetic commissioning. Let's define this ancient literary style of writing. The autobiographical prologue in Hebrew prophetic tradition, authors usually begin by stating their name and then they mention their lineage and then they describe their life circumstances during the time or probably afflictions that they have experienced. Then the first person prophetic commissioning, it's a narrative where the prophet recounts in the first person their divine calling or their connection to God. And then they declare the intent for writing that specific scripture. And then they testify. So let's go back with First Nephi chapter 1 verse 1 and some of the contemporary prophets during the time of Nephi. In First Nephi chapter 1 verse 1, in the first part of this podcast, we mentioned that Nephi and some of the prophets of old mentioned their name or introduces their name as the principal author of this scripture. And then they mentioned the lineage. In First Nephi chapter 1 verse 1, Nephi said he has goodly parents. Jeremiah also mentioned him as being the son of Hilkiah in Jeremiah chapter 1 verse 1. Paul also, in his letter to the Philippian saints in Philippians chapter 3 verse 5, he said that he is of the tribe of Benjamin. After prophets mention their lineage, they mention about their challenges or life circumstances or afflictions. Going back to First Nephi chapter 1 verse 1, Nephi said he had many afflictions. Also Jeremiah mentioned in Jeremiah chapter 1 verse 6, he said, I cannot speak for I am a child. Paul also mentioned in his letter to the Corinthian saints in 2 Corinthians 11, verses 23 to 28, in labors, in stripes, shipwrecks. So those are the circumstances during the time that these prophets are writing their book or scripture. And then they would mention about their divine calling, which is part of the first person prophetic commissioning. Again, it's a narrative where a prophet recounts in the first person their divine calling or their connection to God. So let's go to these scriptures. First Nephi chapter 1 verse 1 again. Nephi said, he has a knowledge of the mysteries of God. Paul says in his letter to the Roman saints in Romans chapter 1 verse 1, he was called to be an apostle. Jeremiah also said in Jeremiah chapter 1 verse 5, I ordained thee a prophet. And then after that, prophets would close their message in the first person prophetic commissioning by declaring their intent to record or they even testify or bear their testimony. For example, in First Nephi chapter 1 verse 1, Nephi said, he make a record of my proceedings in my days. Paul writes his testimony in Romans chapter 1 verse 9, which he said, for God is my witness. So there you have it. That's the ancient Hebraic literary style in First Nephi chapter 1 verse 1. Now stop watching this and read the rest of the scripture.